Okay, so not only do I have a little red button that says we're live, Scott actually put something in the middle of the screen that says you're live.
But are you?
If you didn't join us on our last show earlier, we're just talking and.
No, Bill was. I was paying attention.
Because I couldn't see the stupid red light. Anyway, welcome to another episode of, what do we want to call it this time? Bill and Wendy's Excellent Adventure.
Yeah, Bill and Wendy and Jonathan's Excellent Adventure. That's a good.
So I'm Bill Fairman, Wendy Sweet, Jonathan Davis, Carolina Capital Management. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Our website is carolinahardmoney.com. If you're an investor interested in passive income or returns, click on the investor tab. If you're a borrower, click on the borrower tab.
You kind of have a radio voice these days, Bill. Doesn't he sound like?
I thought you were going to say he has a face for radio.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
I can't argue with it. I'm sorry.
I'm not going to have a radio voice because I have nothing to say about that.
You too can leave a comment or a question in the chat box about Bill's radio voice or radio face.
Whichever one you'd like, yeah.
All right, so we have a great show on tap. We have three excellent guests. We have a brother team out of the Hudson Valley.
Twin brothers.
Yeah.
Out
of White Plains, New York. They have a fix, flip, wholesale, all kind of
and they're youngins. They're youngins.
Right. So
they're like 20 or something. Ridiculous young.
Yeah, you know what I was doing when I was their age?
A lot of stuff you
can't. It's not legal, so don't even talk about it.
What I was doing was trying to figure out what I was going to do on the weekend.
Yeah. What am I going to wear Wednesday nights?
That's right. And then Fernando. Why do I do this every time? Don't tell me.
Angelucci.
I know that name. It's so easy. I don't know why it just doesn't come out of my mouth.
He's been on our show.
And I was going to say, previous guest, he's awesome.
And he still comes back after all that abuse.
And every time he leaves, he talks about how his jaw hurts from laughing. So welcome to the show.
And those are the guys. Everybody say hey.
We got Fernando in for a quick 15, 20 minutes because we had a conversation yesterday via email on a really nice fund structure for self-storage, but you can use this fund structure for any type of property that you want to raise capital for.
Yeah.
And I loved it based on that structure. And I wanted to talk about that.
And self-storage is a hot tamale.
Right.
And you know, it fares well in the good, the bad, and the ugly, no matter what the economy is looking like these days. So it's a great investment for people to be in, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I always like to say that
as part of that investment, yes, I would like to say that it's okay.
So we as Americans can't turn loose of our crap.
No.
And
or the show to let
well, I mean, I'm one. I have one. So
he's like hoarder king. He has to buy a self-storage building just to rent the others so that he can afford to keep his junk.
All right.
He's the king, I'm telling you.
So this really is the case. In most cases, people will get stuff that they are emotionally attached to. They don't want to get rid of it. They'll end up spending, they got $500 worth of stuff. They'll keep it.
He's got all the pens over there.
I'm still hoarding stuff.
He's got everything on the table is sitting in front of Bill.
So, and they'll pay, what, $150 a month for 5 years for $500 worth of stuff they don't want to get rid of.
I rented a place and there was a lady in there paying. She pays $50 a month and she had been renting at that place for 17 years. Yeah. $50 a month. What could you have that would be worth paying $50 a month for 17 years? Grandma's furniture, it's crazy that she had done that. Yeah. 17 years, $50 a month. That's big bucks.
Yeah.
Okay. That said, I'm going to let somebody else talk now. Yeah. So, Fernando, I know you have a capital raise coming up, but let's just talk about the structure of this one and other ones that can be used. We're not going to get into the rate details because you have to be an accredited investor, and you'll have to go.
And if we tell you, we'd have to kill you.
You have to pass a test before you can.
That's right.
Get this detailed information. So,
not a sobriety test.
This particular structure is an equity structure, and you have multiple tiers. Let's talk about the multiple tiers.
Right. So one of the things that we have learned pretty quickly is that, self-storage is pretty hot right now, especially because we're going into a recessionary environment, and has always performed well, at least over the last 3 recessions where we have data, pretty good data on it. Because of that, not only is that attracting, your mom and pop investors that maybe have $50 or $100 or $200,000 to invest, but it's also attracting your institutional investors, your hedge funds, your private equity funds. The thing is, for us as syndicators, the less cooks in the kitchen, the easier it is for us to manage that operation, right? If I have 100 investors at $50,000, each calling me each week to figure out what's going on and get updates, that becomes a pretty tough management obstacle. Now, if I, instead of having that, I have one investor that comes in that wants to give me $5 million as opposed to $50,000, not only does that increase my time value, because I only have to operate with that one or those 2 institutional investors, so that actually gives me more money back. Because the way I'm looking at all of my investments is, it's not about how much you make, but how much do you make for the amount of time you put into that investment. Mm-hmm. So the way that we do it is we will make 2 different tiers based off of those types of investments. So usually the first tier 1, is going to be your minimum raise, whatever it is. We usually like to sit between $25,000 or $50,000 on as a minimum. But if you have a larger guy that's coming in and willing to take a lot of that headache off your plate and eventually make your time value increase, it makes sense to give them a larger return or a higher return based off of offering a special share. So we'll have a tier 1 share, which is going to be, either if it's a 506B, it can be unaccredited, or if it's a 506C, it can be only accredited investors. And if an investor is willing to maybe pony up, maybe it's an investor, say, that only wants to put 50,000 just to dip their toe in and to test out the syndicator at first. And if everything goes right, then they're willing to apply more later. If we can show that we have a track record and maybe nudge them a little bit to go up to the next tier, or tier 2, which would be, say $250,000 or $500,000 minimum on that tier, then we're willing to offer either a higher preferred return or a higher total return, or a combination of both, by offering up additional owner shares. So for example, if you have a syndication where it's a 50-50 split, let's just say, we're just talking hypothetical here. Sure. 50-50 split on the back end with a 6% preferred return to the investor. And then that investor decides, hey, instead of the 50 grand, I'm willing to do $500,000 as an investment. I'm willing to give up some of my shares, so that now, instead of it being 50-50, it's maybe 55 to the investor, 45 to me, which then bumps up their total return. But then I'm also willing to bump up their preferred return, because now I'm spending less time raising capital. I'm spending less time chasing wires to be funded on time to close. And in our business, time is money. So I'm maybe willing to bump up the 6% return or preferred return to maybe an 8 or an 8.5 to entice these larger institutional investors to come in and fund the deal. This is something I actually learned from a mutual friend of ours, Big Mike Zlotnick over at Tempo Funding. Mm-hmm. He's the very first one that said, hey, Fernando, yes, your mom and pop investors are going to be the best capital you can get. But if you just want to start doing larger projects where you're doing maybe a 10 or a 20 or a $25 million raise, you don't want to be doing that in $50,000 increments. You want somebody that's coming in with $1, $2, $3 million checks per submission, sure. Per subscription. And to do that, you need to entice them to do so.
What a great idea.
Yeah.
So the other thing that caught my eye was the REIT quality investment. So right. I know, as in multifamily properties, you have Class A, Class B, Class C type properties. What makes a REIT quality self-storage facility?
Yeah. So let's kind of step back and go through the history of self-storage. Okay. So in the mid to late 80s, there was a big boom in self-storage, and where these are what we call our first generation facilities. Mm-hmm. These were the facilities where someone had some agriculture land and they realized that now there's a town kind of growing around them or near them. And these towny folks that don't have all the acreage to store all their fun toys and their goods, their ATVs, all that stuff, they needed a place to put that because they had a small lot in town. Right. So these, usually if they were farmers, they would section off maybe 3 to 10 acres from their 100 or 500 acre farm, and they'd put up these storage facilities that were non-climate controlled. There was no security, there was no electrical. You just drive up to your door, you unlock it, you put your stuff and you put it down and you lock it, you go away, right? So that's a tier 1 or a generation 1 facility, a first generation facility. Because those first generation facilities were primarily built 20, 30 years ago, these are what we consider our Class C and our Class D facilities because they're old. They're usually in areas that don't have large population centers. The demographics of the area may not be that great. So maybe there's not a lot of traffic counts because now all the traffic moved from Route 66 to the new highway, right? Or maybe all the jobs moved away from agricultural jobs to working in a city in factories or working in these population centers. So that's going to be your generation 1 facility. REITs don't usually like buying those because it's easier to manage one 1,000 unit facility than it is to manage 10 100 unit facilities.
Sure.
Now that doesn't mean it's not a bad investment or it's a bad investment. It's actually quite the opposite. These first generation facilities, Class B facilities, are usually where you can get the highest cap rates upon acquisition. I've bought Class C facilities where day 1 walking in, I was at a 13% cap rate. And then I would value add to a 15 or an 18%.
Wow,
right?
wow.
Now, then you have the second generation facilities that came in. The second generation facilities are the ones that started realizing that there were a need for climate control. So for those of you that live in the South or live in, let's say, Arizona, it can get up to 110 degrees, and that can destroy electronics, that can destroy certain type of fabrics. And then vice versa for someone like me that I live in the city of Chicago, in the winter during the polar vortex, it was negative 47 degrees. Mm-hmm. And certain things can really, especially if you have humidity coming in, that humidity can freeze and ruin fabrics, ruin electronics, those types of things. So the second generation facilities, what they started doing is blending climate control and non-climate control. They would have, their drive-up units outdoors, but then they would maybe have like one internal area that was maybe 10 to 30% of their units that would have climate control or air condition control units. Usually these are all single story facilities. They're only one story. It's like a ranch home, right?
Right.
Then all of a sudden, once some of the big guys, the pioneers in the industry like Public and Extra Space and Life Storage came in, they realized that it was a lot easier and the revenue numbers were a lot higher when they would build closer to population centers, like building in downtown Chicago or building in Greensboro or building in Atlanta. The problem is once you start moving to the population centers, the dirt costs so much more money that you can't build out, right? You have to build up. And when you build up, everything's going to be encapsulated in the shell of the building anyway. So why not do climate control for the entire building? So what a REIT grade facility or a third generation facility, or we also will call it a Class A facility. These are usually multi-story. When you look at them, they don't even look like self-storage anymore. They actually look more like luxury office space or luxury industrial space because they're large. They have nice facades, brick and mortar, very ornate. They have huge windows to show you these super vibrant colored loading doors. Those are the facilities that the REITs really like. Now, the thing with REITs though is because they're publicly traded companies, they are all about stability. They're all about cash flow. So a lot of these REITs, they don't like to build their own. There are a ton of exceptions to this, but primarily what the REITs like to do is let an investor like me take the risk of building the facility, leasing it up to 90%, and then coming to me in the back end and say, Fernando, you did a great job. Let us buy this off you for some unreasonable cap rate. So let's use the example I used earlier. I bought a Class C facility, or a first generation facility, for about a 13% cap rate. My Class A REIT grade facilities, they're buying those off of me at 4.5 to 6% cap rates.
Wow.
Okay.
4.5.
So
Ridiculous.
yeah, but they're sitting on so much cash that to them, they would rather place their cash into an appreciating asset, that hedges against inflation, as opposed to every month losing cash to inflation, right? All this funny money that the Fed is printing right now, that's going to lead to a lot of inflation down the line. And what would you rather be holding in an inflationary environment? Would you rather be holding cash, physical cash that is depreciating or is losing its value over time? Or would you be rather holding a cash flowing asset that's going to appreciate over time, especially if it's in an area like a population center, because there's no infill locations anymore. You can't build anymore unless you tear something down to build, and that usually costs a lot of money. So now on the ranges, I like the Class E facilities because it allows new investors that are maybe familiar with single family or small multifamily to enter. I recently, maybe a couple of weeks ago, I was going to do a quick flip. I bought a $100,000 facility in Illinois. I paid cash, and I'm flipping it in 60 days to another investor for $130,000. Okay, so that's the price of a single family home.
Yeah.
Now my REIT grade facilities that I'm building, those are $13 million projects with the goal to sell to a REIT at $17 to $20 million in 4 years. So it's not a 60-day turn; it's a 4-year turn. So it's a slow flip. But you have way more appreciation on that. And you also have a buyer pool that is sophisticated and have a ton of money sitting. So you don't have to worry, are they going to qualify? Are they going to be able to come with a down payment? They're usually coming cash. And they're saying, hey, we'll close 60 days as long as all your numbers are right. Here's the cash. Let's go.
Wow.
And so if the REIT doesn't want to buy it, you can always refinance it and cash out your investors.
Yeah, let's use those numbers again. I'm
and then
12 million in.
Yeah, and then hopefully their equity now is not taxable.
Right, and so that's one of the things that we really like about self-storage is there's a lot of really great tax strategies, tax advantage strategies with self-storage. One of the things that I love to do is what's called a cost segregation study.
Right.
A cost segregation study. What it is, you hire a civil engineer, and he will actually challenge the IRS depreciation schedule. So with the IRS, I think it's like 29 and a half years that you can depreciate a residential property, and then 37 years that you can depreciate a commercial property. For those that don't understand how depreciation works, let's say that you have $1 million asset, and that asset is depreciable, let's say over 10 years. That means every year you get to write off 1/10 of the value on your taxes against your cash flow. Now, but because with commercial property, it's so long, 37 years, that depreciation is not really great. But what the cost segregation study does is the civil engineer comes in and says, whoa, 37 years. How about these roll-up doors? These roll-up doors need to be changed every 7 years. So let's assign 7-year depreciation values to those doors, and those springs, those need to be changed every 4.5 years. So we assign 4.5 years, and these sliding metal walls over here, that's every 10 years these need to be replaced. So then they take this blended depreciation schedule, they submit it to the IRS for approval, and then all of a sudden our write-offs are massive. So just as a middle of the road example, we bought an $800,000 facility in central Illinois. I paid $6,500 for the cost segregation study. It was actually a couple friends of ours from Collective Genius as well, Joe Viry and Jan Regan.
Right.
I paid him $6,500. The depreciation I got to take year one, which included bonus depreciation, was $183,000.
Wow.
I was able to write off all of my income for the next 3.5 years without paying a penny in taxes. That's fantastic, right? So now let's scale that up to a $12.5 million project. Imagine how much depreciation you can take on that, right? So not only are you taking the depreciation against your income, you're also taking, when you do the refinance, that is considered a return of equity, not a capital gain. So that's also not taxed. And then if you ever want to go and dispose of it, you can do a 1031. I actually don't like 1031s. I prefer even more advanced strategies than that. And I can hook you guys up with my buddy Bruce Jones at Tax Wealth, where you can actually sell a property to another investor, 100% tax-free, and set it up using a charitable remainder trust where you get paid 5 payments over a 4.25 years, and none of it, you almost get 100% of the value of your property without having to find another property to change into. You actually get cash in hand. That's why I like that, as opposed to taking a 1031, especially in environments where.
Yeah.
What's his name again?
I could connect you. His name is
That
Bruce
sounds
Jones.
good.
He's been suing the IRS for about 40 years now. He loves it.
Wow.
Good.
Wow.
That's a friend I'd like to have.
Yeah.
Somebody
I'll connect you guys. Yeah, I'll connect you guys.
not afraid to sue the IRS.
So Fernando, how can people get in touch with you? What's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can check us out on social media at The Storage Stud. You can also go to our website, thestoragestud.com. There should be a contact form there to find me. And then anytime you guys have any questions, you can also come through Bill and Wendy and John. You can come through, anybody, the other people that we've had on our shows that have referenced me in the past. I'm always available. I love teaching people about self-storage. It's one of the things that I think everybody, if you're not going to do what I did, which is I completely traded out of all my assets into self-storage only, at least add 1 or 2 facilities to diversify your portfolios. Maybe have a couple hard money loans, have a couple fund investments, have a couple single family, have a couple multifamily, because then you can really, regardless of what the market's doing, the average of your investments are going to kind of keep going like this, just steady,
right.
Excellent.
Awesome. Good stuff.
So you're in the middle of a capital raise for a project coming up. So
correct.
Go to the website, get some details.
Sure.
And, actually talk to Fernando to get the actual details.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Fernando.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
We'll talk
Bye.
soon. Have fun in your meeting.
Well.
See you later. Okay. That was awesome, wasn't it?
It was really good. I think we're going to get Jake and Austin to sell all their stuff and become
Absolutely.
self-storage
So-
gurus.
So coming up now, we have Jake and Austin.
Giraffe.
Not giraffe. Giraffe.
Deraaff.
And they are with Raven 3 Home Buyers. They are up in the
Hudson Valley.
Hudson. Let me finish.
Well, you take so long.
She is so impatient. I'm sitting in her little cubicle back there trying to explain something to her. She's going, come on, get it out.
I got stuff to do.
I'm like one of those politicians. You do a 25-minute press conference and I answer one question.
See, and we still haven't gotten
still haven't
Jake
even-
and Austin.
All right.
See what I mean?
Scott, put Jake and Austin back on. Anyway, thanks guys for joining us.
My first question is, how old are y'all?
We're 23 years old.
23 years old, and you're twins, right?
Yes. Yep, we are.
So, Austin, you're the one with the hat.
Yes.
So that would leave Jake as the other guy.
Yep. One right here.
So how long have you guys been doing this?
It's a good question. So first, thank you so much for having us on the show. It really means a lot to us. And our goal for this next 30 minutes is to bring as much value as possible to your listeners.
Awesome.
To answer your question, we dropped out of school 3 years ago. And so actually on the August 1st, 3 years ago, we started our business. So it's been 3 years. We dropped out. And why did we drop out? We just, we didn't see any value in the education program. And it was 3 years ago, Jake, he dropped a course on my desk and it said, how to buy real estate with no money, no credit, no income, no license. I said, all right, I have no money in my bank, I have no credit, and I don't have a real estate license. Let me check this out. So we learned about wholesaling. We took full-fledged, full commitment, dropped out of school, moved out of our parents' house, and went full force from it. It did take us a while to get a paycheck. It took us actually 7 months, but it was the most rewarding thing ever. So we've been here for about 3 years.
Well, you say you don't see the value in education, but you're talking about the formal education part because you're always getting an education.
Generalized knowledge.
Yeah.
Specialized knowledge is very critical.
So you took a course. Was it like an online course or?
Exactly. It was just an intro to wholesaling course by actually Cody Sperber out in Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh, yeah.
$50.
Excellent. So what are you guys doing mostly now? I know you in 2019 did like 35 deals. That's killer.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so our business model is pretty simple. We love to buy houses. We have a lot of different strategies when we do buy them. We wholesale, we wholetail, we fix and flip. We like to buy apartments. We're actually closing on a building today. And we have a realtor division and a short sale division as well.
Gotcha. Wow.
Man, that is awesome. So what's the economy like up in the Hudson Valley area right now?
Good question. We actually were really nervous once Corona hit. We were like, hope the ship doesn't go down and sink like the Titanic. It actually the complete opposite. For like maybe 30 days was on pause, but now so many people want to leave Manhattan, which is we're about 45 minutes from Manhattan. People know where that is. That people are just coming into our markets and they just want to buy homes to live in because they don't want to be stuck in an apartment if this ever happens again. So where we are, 45 minutes north of the city, is completely hot. You can't even buy a good deal right now on the market. So that's why we do a lot of marketing to find off-market properties.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
And so what kind of marketing are you doing?
We do a variety of different things, but our bread and butter is direct mail, bandit signs, cold calling. We have a door knocking campaign. We network a lot. We love networking with people, as well as, am I forgetting anything else? Some PPC and some Facebook. Yeah.
So how do you handle it when you're sitting in front of somebody and they look at you and say, does your mother know you're out here doing this? I mean, they're thinking, how can this young gun know what they're talking about? How do you handle that?
It's actually a funny question. So the way we position ourselves is kind of like, again, we used to get that a lot, but I've noticed the more experienced you sound, the way you can't handle yourself is the way people see you. So in the beginning, we didn't really know about the business. It came up more. So now when we actually have a conversation, we position ourselves as the experts. We don't get too much pushback. But what we do a lot is when we negotiate, we kind of say we work for the partners or investors. So no one gets mad at us when we offer lower price than they might want for their property. So we use like partners, investors as kind of like a third person, third party kind of a way of making offers. Yeah.
Well, see, that's great. I know people that own rental property that'll do the same thing. I'm just here collecting the payment. I'll let the owner know.
Yeah.
That's an awesome way to do it.
So what area are you really concentrating in, and do you see yourself expanding outside of it?
So right now we do a lot of business in 4 counties: Westchester County, where we're located here in White Plains, Orange County, Dutchess County, and Putnam County. We do anticipate expanding in the future, but we just love New York. And we're going to continue to build a brand here and then maybe move out to Connecticut or New Jersey.
Awesome.
So you're doing what you can to stay in those high tax areas.
Try to flip as fast as possible.
Listen, the Hudson Valley is a beautiful area. I used to drive up there once a week from Charlotte, and it's just awesome going up through there. And you get a little further north into the Catskills, and it's just a beautiful place. Not in February. But I do see the trend for people moving out of the larger cities and trying to get into the suburbs. So are you seeing an issue with having a hard time finding enough inventory?
We actually, good question. So we kind of ramped up our marketing. So, we always have deals coming in, but when there's deals, you have to move on them quickly. There's obviously a lot of investors that want to pick up these deals. So right now the homeowners have a lot of options. So we try to position ourselves as the best option for them. We offer a couple services that make it stand out. So we actually have a whole relocation program. So like if we go buy a single family home for the seller, they've been there for 40 years. A lot of their concerns are, where do I go? So we offer a whole program where we partner up with a couple of local realtors, and we actually help them move to a new place. So transition period. So that sets us apart. We actually help people put up advanced deposits on new houses. We physically give them money up front before we close to do that as well. So we have a couple different services we provide that really make it stand out from the other 10 companies that make offers.
Nice. So how do you make sure that they actually close after you give them the upfront money? That's what I always be concerned about, that my documentation is proper. So they just say, yeah, I changed my mind.
Yeah, we only do it specifically on a couple, sellers that we really have a good relationship with. We won't just throw money around, but
sure.
Yeah, we just like to give a couple incentives just to have them come in our direction.
Excellent.
Gotcha.
Did you want to
You have a question?
You were asking you were looking like you wanted to ask a question, and I kept cutting you off.
That's so unlike Bill.
I know. That's unlike you, Bill. No. It's been so long since you
He's forgotten
stopped
now.
talking, and I've forgotten it.
So, listen, you guys have a great story. So, tell us about some weird things or some odd things that have happened to you since you started this business.
Other than being on this show.
Look, our whole goal was to fix and flip. So what we started was our wholesaling business to create enough cash flow so we can start actually doing that. So I'll tell you a quick little story. Our first fix and flip was a quick little deal. We bought it for like 190 grand. We only wanted to put 15,000 bucks into it, just clean it up and get a retail buyer. And we actually lived about 40 minutes away from the property. So I would actually drive there every single day just to make sure that the contractors were working. About, I'd probably say second or third week in, I get to the job one of the days, go into the house, and it's empty. There's no music playing, nobody's working, and we're paying them on a week-by-week basis, which is, of course, we made the mistake in the beginning of doing that because we were rookies. And so I see the cars in the back. There's a truck. So I go over to the truck. My GC's fully asleep in the car, completely knocked out. So I'm banging on the window, and he gets up. He's like, "Oh, I was on my lunch break," and we just had to. We've learned everything. We've failed forward. We failed a lot, and we've just learned what not to do. And I think that's what separates us is we fail forward.
Yeah,
and that's awesome. I think that's the biggest mistake that investors make is they don't allow mistakes. They don't welcome them because that's really how you learn, isn't it? You have to mess up to really carry that with you.
The first loan I ever did, I lost money on.
Yeah,
I could have stopped then.
Now he loses on all his deals. The key is to understand that mistakes are really your friend, because especially the smaller ones, because they're going to keep you from getting into the bigger ones. And there's even I've been doing this for 20 years and I still make mistakes. We all do. We learn from every single thing that we do. Did I hear you say earlier that you bought a commercial building today?
We did, yeah.
So tell me about that.
So it was actually through a bandit sign. I don't know if you guys know, but those We Buy House signs. We called in, and it's a 7-family building in a really good area in New York. And we're closing today, and we got it at a good price. And yeah, we're
tell the numbers.
So the purchase price was $490. We already have an offer at $590 on it by someone local in the area. We already declined it, but we're probably gonna hold a 6-month loan, refinance down to 30 fixed, and hold for a nice time, because that area where it's in is really high demand from New Yorkers, from Brooklyn, Manhattan, because we just want to move up there. So,
it's up in Orange County, up in Cornwall, New York.
Yeah, it's about an hour from the city, so people love it. And it's 7 apartments, so we're gonna probably hold on to it for quite some time.
And you got that from a bandit sign.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. How many units is it?
7.
Okay, so you've got an opportunity to make $100,000 and not touch it.
Yeah, we said no. Yeah, because we see the cash flow, the value, and if we go refinance, we'll just pull equity out and put it into someone else.
So both your exit strategies don't suck.
It's always nice when that happens. Yeah.
That's amazing.
What percentage are you? Because I know you all started out wholesaling, but how much wholesaling are you all still doing, or are you just focusing on the fix and flip and kind of like the wealth building, asset building?
I'd say about every 10 deals we do, we'll probably close on 3. We'll wholesale 7 of them, and then we'll either fix and flip or wholetail the other 3. So 30% fix and flip, 70% wholesale right now.
Gotcha. How much? Because I know you said you had to wait 7 months to get paid on your first wholesale deal. Can you kind of tell people, because that's typically where a lot of people get started into real estate, is on the wholesale side. How much work is it? Because I think a lot of people don't understand what kind of work has to go into wholesaling. Can you kind of tell us, I know you said you went 7 months, but kind of what did that first 7 months look like for you guys?
That's a great question. I actually love answering this question. So the first 7 months were crazy. I think the biggest issue we had was we weren't consistently marketing. We tried everything: door knocking, walking to attorney's office with no appointment, just walking in, saying you have deals, putting out flyers, talking to local agents. Every marketing strategy. But the problem why it took so long was, first, we didn't want to invest in the company. We didn't actually want to put our money out, to work in terms of marketing, which you have to do. And we just weren't consistent on one strategy. But we, you probably could ask him 30 times during the 7 months, we probably wanted to quit. But we just knew when we get that first deal, momentum would kick in, and it really did. But it was tough. It was just, we were doing so many things and nothing was working. We were getting frustrated. We're like, this probably isn't working. We just kept pushing. And then finally, we got a call from a seller. It's actually a bandit sign, which we love. And she was in pre-foreclosure. She was going through a divorce, and she already moved out of the house. It was actually in our hometown. So I knew the street, I knew the house, knew everything. We went out to the property. We picked it up for $185, and we made $15,000 30 days later. And that's really when the business started.
That's awesome. Yeah. Wow. That's really cool.
It is. That's a great story. I'm sorry?
It was a crazy ride, but you have to go through it. Most people, I think 95% of the people would have quit. And I think that's what helps people stand out, is really going through the adversity and really, pushing through those bad times.
Well, I mean, if nothing else, wholesaling will teach you work ethic and not giving up. I feel like that's what it teaches. Yeah. Like you develop some strong work ethic. I don't think you work more hours wholesaling than you ever do pretty much on any other aspect of real estate.
And the other thing too, I think that's important for wholesalers to understand is you really need to be more of a question asker. When you're a wholesaler, you need to understand that person's pain point, because your goal is to fix that for them, whatever that pain point is. Is that what you're finding?
100%. We actually, quick little story. We locked up a deal last week at $50,000 lower than another investor. So it was between us and another company, and the other company went to the house, made him an offer, didn't give any business cards, just kind of like a fly-by-night, and didn't ask the guy the right questions. Like you said, didn't have a conversation with them. And our guys went into the property, sat down with the guy, grabbed some lunch with him, there for 3-4 hours, built rapport. And it wasn't about the money to him. It was about making sure the deal was going to happen, making sure, we also helping him move as well. So doing these extra things for him, finding what his goal was. And it wasn't all about the money. It was about finding a place to go, doing it in obviously a timely fashion. And we got like $45,000 less than the other team. So I think you're completely right. It's if you're wholesaling, you really have to you're really in a marketing and sales business, and you have to have the right conversation with the people to, get the right deals.
And listen, you have to listen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your job is to solve a problem, and you can't solve the problem unless you know what the problem is. And it can be difficult trying to get what their actual pain point or problem that they're having, because they're still going to be defensive to that. Some of it's, dirty laundry they don't want to talk about. It's interesting, but you have to have those conversations. You can't just go in and make offers. If you do, you're that's the shotgun approach. You're eventually going to get somebody to say yes, but you're just lucked into it, right?
Exactly, 100%. Exactly.
Yeah, I was telling Bill earlier. I just closed on a house the other day, and I'm telling you, wholesalers, they have to work. The wholesaler had to track down 27 heirs to get this house closed.
Really?
Oh, and he's not finished. 2 of them died before he could get to them.
Well, that's why they had to track down 27. There was originally less. But they earned what they got. They earned it. So. Yeah. So
I know you like using bandit signs. Everybody loves the bandit signs, except for the municipalities.
Yeah.
We can find them every time, so we know.
Have you run into too many issues with putting the signs out, or you just put new ones out when they take them away?
Yeah, our team we have like 5 drivers. They just every weekend they put them out, and whatever stays up stays up. If they don't stay up, they just they re-put them up every week. But yeah, the municipalities in some parts are a little strict, but we have to just keep putting them up. It's a consistent effort.
But you haven't had any issues where they, instead of just picking them up, they've come after you for putting them out in the first place.
Yeah,
we got fined once or twice.
We've gotten fined a couple bucks, yeah, but it's part of the game. So
cost of doing business.
I can tell you, one time when I was in business with Larry Goins, we put a sign out. And the code enforcement called our number on the sign to complain about the sign being there, and we ended up buying a house from the guy. So it worked out pretty good. You just have to be really careful. But those signs are really, really important. And I think a lot of people don't understand just how well they really do work. And they go back, years and years in time, that they've been working all along. People tend to go off in different directions of how they're going to market things. Postcards get really popular, then they die out. Then a pink letter will get really popular, then it'll die out. And then, texting got really popular. Now it's kind of backing off a little bit. But bandit signs remain strong and have never ended. Wouldn't you agree?
We agree.
Well, the truth is,
I'm lying.
No, she's correct. The truth is that all these marketing pieces are a spoke in the wheel.
Yeah.
And you need to utilize all of them because everybody is a little bit different and you're going to get their attention in different ways.
Yeah.
And you have to utilize all the spokes so the wheel won't get wobbly.
Yeah. And I think you guys brought up a really good point too. In the beginning, you were talking about how long it took you, the 7 months in that first house that you were working on, but the first deal that you were working on. And you were talking about all the different marketing tools you were trying to use. There were a multitude. You said you had a lot that you were using. And I find that if you really focus, pick 2 or 3 that you really just hammer that particular marketing arm, that's the consistency that will end up coming back with you. Is that what you guys have found?
100%. Yeah, that was the problem, is we just weren't consistent with it and we weren't scaling it. Like if you put out 10 signs, you can't expect to get 10 deals. You have to put out a lot of signs or make a lot of calls or knock on a lot of doors. So that's what we consistently do. We don't move on to another strategy until that prior one is completed or like scalable.
Right. You've been in business long enough to collect enough leads. Have you gone back to the leads that were basically trash at one point and tried to bring them back to the front to see if they're ready to sell? Do you go back to your old leads?
Yeah, we're doing a couple follow-ups from people that we knocked on their door 2 years ago and we're closing in the next 30 days. So our lead managers understand that it's just a numbers game, and if they're not ready now, they might not be ready for 6 more months or a year. But if you build a relationship, when they're ready, their goal is to think of us when they go to sell. So we always try to build a relationship. Obviously, there's times that they sell before we know what can happen, but we always stay followed with the leads.
Yeah. You don't throw them away, right?
No.
I know even in the lending business, we have leads from 7, 8, 9 years ago.
Yep.
And, we still hang on to them and send them reminders and our newsletters and things like that just to keep them in the mix. And we've got borrowers that we've had for that long, or longer even. So it's worth it.
Yeah, I would also encourage you to do short 5-minute videos of, and we do this every week. We answer questions people have posed to us.
Well, they're 5-minute videos for everyone except Bill. They're 12-minute videos for Bill.
We turn them into an hour. But my point is that if you do videos where you're just explaining scenarios, not putting any particular person out there, but different scenarios and why you would do something.
How you've been able to help them.
Yeah. And,
pick a pain point that you were able to solve. Do a different video on a pain point that you were able to solve.
And then just post those on your website, but also on, YouTube and Facebook and all that, and have it all brought back to your website. Eventually, you're going to start getting some really good eyeballs on your website because you're going to have the keywords in there that people are looking for. So each video is entitled that particular pain point, and those are your keywords that people are going to be typing in. So,
yeah,
just like when you started off that first 7 months, it's probably going to take that long to start getting your SEO up based on those. But the more you put it in there, the more the search engines like it, and you'll continue to, the ball will start rolling.
Yeah. You guys doing a lot of social marketing now?
Social as in like online, like Facebook and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, we run Facebook ads.
Oh, you run the ads?
Yeah. We don't do too much SEO, but it's a good point. It's a great tip what you mentioned. We're actually every deal now, we try to get a testimonial, like you said, from the sellers. So we're going to start implementing that in the next 3 to 6 months. But that's a great tip.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
The one thing it helps is that you're constantly updating your website, and the search engines, when they see there's a lot of activity updating on the website, they just automatically kind of lift you up to the top. Our website, if you're searching for hard money in North or South Carolina, we're always at the top of the Google page. And
That's awesome.
Part of that is because our URL is what we do and where we do it. So those are definitely key search terms.
Yeah.
But we're constantly, we have a podcast that we're constantly adding recordings to. We're always doing extra videos, and it just, the site itself is constantly being updated, and that's what they look for. So anyway, I hope that'll help a little bit.
I have a question for you guys. I know you are siblings. Do you have other siblings?
Double trouble.
It's us.
Y'all are the only ones. So what do your parents think about what you're doing?
So originally when we got into the business, they kind of told us to be careful, and real estate's this and real estate's that, and they didn't really know what real estate was. So we actually left the house and we started the business. We ended up coming back and then moving into another apartment. Long story short, they told us to go back to school. And now our dad actually works for us. He's our project manager. But
Yeah.
After we're making some money.
That is awesome. And you're so right. In today's world, everybody, expects for their kid to graduate from high school and go on to college. And there's a lot of people who just aren't college material. And really, do you need to take a major in psychology to become a real estate agent? Because it's whatever we went to school for. You never end up doing it anyway, unless you're in a profession that needs some sort of license for that. So my kids are 17, 18, and 19, and I have been encouraging all three of my kids to come to the mastermind groups, go to the events that I'm going to. That's the best education that you can get. Unless you want to be a teacher, you got to have a degree for that. You want to be a doctor, of course, you got to go to school for that. But for most of the things that we do out there, you don't have to have the college education to be successful, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Especially in real estate. It's not something that's taught in school. Anyway, I went to college, and I wish I didn't have the bill that I have right now for it.
Yeah.
Because
Are you still paying student loans?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. I refuse to pay them more than I have to.
I don't blame you.
I'm waiting for somebody to just forgive it all.
So college does a great job of teaching you how to get a job
and indoctrinate you.
Well, yeah, but the thing about it is, if you want
It's a whole nother show.
if you want to have a job, go to college.
Yeah.
If you want to own a business, do it on your own.
Yeah. Absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with taking courses. You still need an education.
Yeah.
But make it specific to business, understanding how to run a business.
Yeah. Oh, and to their point, half my family thinks I'm a real estate agent. So they won't understand what you do. That's fine.
All right.
But what's your all's big plan? Are you all wanting to do a brokerage firm? You just kind of playing it by ear, or kind of what's your all's?
What do you want to be when you grow up?
Bill wants to be you all when he grows up, but.
So that's a great question. So obviously our goal, we want to shift more towards the commercial side because we obviously see the long-term potential. So our goal is by, age 20-year plan is get $1 billion worth of real estate. And then for the next 5 to 10 years, grow obviously the wholesale company as wide as possible and do as many deals as possible. And while we build up that the passive income side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you'll find that what you're doing now is great eat money, as they say. But you need to
build wealth,
build the passive returns. You don't have to necessarily own properties. You can, what we do, we would much rather control the asset without being responsible for it.
Yep.
So that's why we're in lending. But there's great opportunity for long-term passive revenue streams, and that's what really your goal is to do that. But you guys have done a great job. We appreciate you coming on. how can folks get in touch with you if they want to either sell you a house or learn a little bit from you?
You can follow me on Instagram at my full name at Jake.Deraaff, and that's on Instagram.
The Austin Deraaff on Instagram, or you can email me at Austin, AUSTIN, at raven3.com. And if you have any questions, concerns, want to get real estate or wholesaling, feel free to reach out to us.
Yeah, we love when people reach out. We want to create as much value for your listeners and anybody that's looking to get into real estate as possible.
Awesome.
We
Thank you,
appreciate that.
guys.
And you can tell we're old because we put your URL there.
Yeah, we don't
instead of
do
your
that.
Instagram stuff.
Yeah, we don't do that twit face gram. We got people that do that for us.
Guys, it was a pleasure. All right, folks, don't forget our website is carolinahardmoney.com. If you're interested in passive returns, click on the investor tab. If you're interested in a loan, click on the borrower tab. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. It's been an awesome day, and
it was a pleasure, Jake and Austin. We'll see you at CG the next meeting, I hope, right?
remember,
I'll bring the wine for you guys.
Awesome.
1 o'clock mandatory call Friday.
Yeah, don't forget.
All right, guys, take care. Thanks again for joining us.
Once again.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.